Hello everyone and welcome along to your Monday night edition of the TII podcast. My name is Craig Dennett and I'm your host this evening as I'm joined by Iain and Tommy to look back over what was Philippe Clement's first game in charge of Rangers and an enjoyable game it was too. Iain, welcome along to the podcast. How are you doing?
All good, mate. Yeah, as I was saying, the Rangers win, so my week's looking good, so all good.
Excellent. And Tommy, I assume you had an enjoyable weekend as well?
Yeah. Listen, it's positive. Has a corner been turned? That's probably part of the conversation. But yeah, listen, nice to be discussing a good performance and a good result.
Absolutely. It's always good to be on after a Rangers win. And as we said, it was Philippe Clement's first game in charge of Rangers. He got a rapturous reception from the Ibrox crowd as he walked out into the dugout before the game. People were just as happy with him after the game, if not happier. So we'll delve into some of the sort of major talking points, and we'll start to take a look at the bigger picture, let's say, and what it might mean for Rangers going forward. Iain, just to start us off though, what are your reflections on the game? What did you make of Philippe Clement's first game in charge?
Very pleased. Yeah, it's kind of everything I was looking for and a little bit more. I kind of thought going into the game, a win will do, which is a bit negative kind of as a viewpoint. But if you told me pre-game 4-0, I'd have been delighted. I'd look at that Hibs team and I know they played terrible and they didn't help themselves at all. But I feel like on paper it's a decent side. And for some reason, I just get this weird trepidation playing Hibs. I just don't like it. I just don't like the history of a few games here and there. So, yeah, I mean, good performances, good result, a lot of positives. And for once, there's not too many negatives. So, yeah, I'll take that every day.
Tommy, it was one of those ones where Philippe Clement had been in the door 2 or 3 days. We saw how deep down a hole that the team were when yourself and I were at the Aberdeen game at Ibrox just before the international break. I was really questioning how much could he really change in the course of the space of 2 days. We've seen these players for weeks and weeks and weeks struggle, and then all of a sudden 2 days of Philippe Clement, and we turn up on Saturday and we look like a completely different team. I think I was surprised at how much it was able to change.
Yeah, listen, it goes to the point here that by and large that squad isn't as bad as we all maybe thought it was, and I think the more kind of reasonable people understood that there was just a lot of subpar performances, and whether that was the players or Michael Beale not being able to get a particular tune out of them, is what it is. The players have reacted and they've given a good performance. Philippe Clement and his team should be happy with that. We are happy with that as fans. This team facing still the same problem, which is, will they consistently be able to do that for a manager? This is where they're falling down. So I don't want to. It's fantastic. Listen, we got what we wanted. I think we had like 52% possession. I think we had 23 shots, 7 or 9 on target, and converted 4 into goals. That's probably been the difference between other games. I think Michael Beale was big on the top of the shot league, so to speak, and that's not me kicking a man when he's down. But it's great, and it is great to get that result. I think to Ian's point, which is well made, the conditioning of us all has got to a point where, listen, I'll just take the points. That's all I want at this stage, right? But we did really well. Hibs were terrible, but I think we actually made them pretty poor as well. They couldn't really implement their game plan. But yeah, ultimately, will they be able to consistently do it? That's the question mark that will continue over some of these players until they actually do it.
Absolutely, and we've also got a big week this week again. Europa League away in Prague to Sparta Prague on Thursday, and at home to Hearts on Sunday. If we get 2 wins out of those, Philippe Clement might be up for a knighthood at this stage. He manages three wins in a week. But let's have a look at, I guess, some of the key points from Saturday. There's I assume this is our very own JB, but it might not be. Great to have a bit of passion back on the touchline, even getting on the pitch for a kickabout. I don't know if you managed to see Philippe Clement intercepting the ball down the line from the Hibs fullback, but he did a very good acting job of pretending that he didn't understand and he thought the ball was out and all that sort of stuff. So he's playing for us as well as managing us. Iain, first of all, I guess Kyle and I were at the game, obviously, for TII on Saturday. in our I guess our reaction to the team selection, we spoke about actually that when we first saw the starting lineup, it was quite deflating, because then you remember who's in the squad and you remember what the players have done beforehand, and it kind of brings you back down to earth a wee bit. But one of the things that I thought was instantly noticeable, or an instantly noticeable decision from Philippe Clement, was playing players in the position that they best perform in. Was that one of the key things that kind of stuck out to you from I guess the team setup itself?
Completely. Yeah, I mean, I did see the starting 11 and had a bit of a whimper. I mean, if I've got in front of me here, Scott Wright, Lammers, Dessers, Barisic. I don't take much excitement from those four, to name a few really there. But as you say, I think it's more about who's fit and who can play right wing. Right, there you go. Who can play left wing? There you go. And you saw the benefits that brought. People knew where to be at a certain time. We'll know that game where Scott Wright was playing as like a number 8, then a 10, then off the left. It was a mess. Aberdeen, I think it was, or game before that, Motherwell even. But I think that's kind of back to basics right now. A proper manager comes in, picks his best player for that position, and it worked. I'm sort of part of this Barisic out brigade, so that was part of the thinking, how's he get the nod ahead of Yilmaz? But didn't quite think my voodoo doll would work that quick, but there we go. But no, I mean, there's not a lot that Clement could have done differently in a way. Maybe bring McCausland in, but I don't think he's like the long-term answer. So once I'd calmed down the first few minutes, I think the lineup made sense, and obviously it paid off in the end.
It absolutely did. Tommy, I don't think we learned a great deal from the lineup itself, other than, I guess, playing to players' strengths. But outside of that, there's not much that he could change. There's obviously a vast number of injuries, and we've got players coming back like Cantwell and Roofe, etc., that were on the bench on Saturday. On Philippe Clement overall, I guess, and how he set up for the game, the style of play, what he was looking for, what he was showing on the touchline that he wanted from the players. What do you think we learned overall in that first game? It's obviously a very small sample size. It's a very quick snapshot of a start for Philippe Clement at Rangers. But what did you, as a fan sitting in the stadium at Ibrox, what did you feel you learned from that game on Saturday?
Probably these players can be given a simpler message. And the simple message was, be slightly braver, move it forward quicker. Right? And I don't think there's anybody who's been sitting in the stands or watching at home over the past couple of seasons who hasn't shouted that at some of these players, right? Several times in various different languages, right? In various different combinations of swear words, of move the ball a bit quicker, right? It's pretty much that simple. Actually, he got that tune out of them. You know, you've got people like, you know, Sima, Dessers worked really hard as well. Lammers was trying to move it forward. Right, shouldn't be in a Rangers jersey, but you know, guys like Raskin, etc. And then, as you say, people like Cantwell coming back in, McCausland, Danilo. You've still had Roofe and stuff like that on the bench as well. Ultimately, put down the marker early. No lateral passes. Don't be scared to be brave in front of these fans, and that's a bit of a shot to us, I suppose, as well. Which don't get the big sigh and, you know, all that type of stuff when a forward player tries to make something happen. So, yeah, the players can take on a simple message. Can they take on slightly more complex messages? Can they believe in themselves when it doesn't happen for a while? Can they break teams down? Can they go with the message, which is, yeah, the fans might be on your back a bit, but it's up to you to do something to stop the fans being on your back, as opposed to, oh, well, I'll just post something on social media or something like after the game saying we go again, or whatever that looks like. So, yeah, it's a bit of a longer answer there, but Clement got what he wanted, which was, I know there's good players in this team, and it's a good team if I can just get them to work correctly. And he got the massive lift there of a Dessers goal as well, which I'm sure we'll touch on in a moment. But, yeah, simple messages, simple football, get it forward, rely on your talent. All of a sudden, you've scored 4 goals and kept a clean sheet.
Yeah, Iain, Tommy's mentioned there a couple of times around getting the ball forward and getting the ball forward quick. It was obviously one of the frustrations that we had under Michael Beale, was that we seemed to actively work against ourselves and slow the ball down and slow the game down and pass side to side more often than not, side to side and backwards, etc. one thing I did notice at the game was that Clement was, whenever players got the ball, he was instantly pointing forward. And as soon as they got to the next player, he was pointing forward again. So it was clearly that was one of the instructions he was giving. But how pleasing was it for you, and how, I guess, going forward that into future games and the upcoming, I guess, run of games that we've got, that emphasis on getting the ball forward and getting the ball forward quickly is going to be there?
Yeah, it's massive. I think I said in the last pod I was on about how it became a bit of a chore going to Ibrox, and that's such a horrible thing to say about your club, let alone a club our size. But the style of play wasn't there. The backwards passing that you touched on, the Lundstram to Galton to Davies / sort of back to Lundstram to Tav for him to just whip across. It was just so negative, so repeated. Just wasn't going to break down teams at this level because of the whole like back fives, back tens that we see at Ibrox so often. So yeah, seeing sort of people getting the ball and just driving, just going. It's so simple. It's so, I don't want to say basic, because a lot of these players have been through a lot of different systems now. You think back to Gio's like horseshoe style of kind of building from the back, round the sides and stuff. Gerrard had a patient, cautious side to him as well at times. And then obviously Michael Beale's style, if you can even call it a style, never quite got going. But I think it was like the first couple of minutes when Tav wins the ball back and just goes and just plays the pass through to Lammers. Straight away, it was like, right, there's the intent. Keep doing that. And for once, we actually did keep doing that. It wasn't the get to 15, 20 minutes or get to 1-0 and just revert to type. That's what was probably the most pleasing aspect for me, was they kept going, kept making chances, kept going forward. I don't want to say handbrake off. I don't want to coin that phrase too soon here, but it's something that is a better sign than anything else I've seen at Ibrox so far this season.
Yeah, it's actually a phrase that's been used a few times in the comments. I've got one saved up for a wee bit later on that one in terms of handbrake off side of things. But I completely agree. I was a bit like you. I was sitting beside Kyle, and Kyle was getting excited after 5 minutes, and I was like, we normally start quite quickly and then we slow down after the 10-minute mark. But thankfully we didn't. That didn't happen on Saturday. I did feel, like you said, Iain, the fullbacks were getting forward and they almost had more of a license to get forward. I think Borna Barisic had four forward passes in the first 5 minutes, which was a novelty in itself before he went off injured. Tommy, just about that though, in terms of, I guess the fullbacks have come under a lot of criticism so far this season. Even for sort of second half of last season, they were coming under a lot of criticism. It didn't seem like they were getting forward as much to support attacks, but they were still struggling defensively. Saturday seemed to be completely different, and it made me question about, is it managerial instructions they've been following that has resulted in them playing in that way? I think it's probably a bit of both in terms of the players' own poor form alongside managerial instructions, but one of the things that stuck out to me was that the fullbacks did seem to have more freedom on Saturday.
They did, but no more or less freedom than they probably did under Michael Beale. It's a belief thing. And I naturally think that they weren't told to get forward or anything like that by Michael Beale. I'm happy to be wrong with her, but I'm pretty sure he would have been saying, try and use your attributes to go forward. I think Clement actually nailed it in his post-match press conference when he was talking about adherence to the structure and making the runs and the tempo that we're playing at. And maybe tempo is the word that needs to come into this part of the conversation. It was moving as a team, that structural point, that keeping adherence to that, and then keeping it high tempo, not saying we've got one goal or it's been a wee bit of a dodgy 5 minutes, we'll sit back and we'll see if we can soak this up. I don't want to be the person on the ball because the fans are booing me a wee bit, and I'd rather not have that. And then I think Philippe Clement also mentioned in that post-match as well about the reactions after losing the ball, going and hunting it, bringing it back in, getting it moving it around again, and just making Hibs chase shadows. These are the good things. What, again, I don't want to duplicate what I said earlier, but what was, and I think I can quote here off the top of my head, but he was saying that it's like a honeymoon, right? And everything is new. I think he said, they need to confirm this the next week, the next month. That comes back to my consistency point. So we can talk about players playing higher, players being a little bit more depth through the middle, players being a little bit closer together at the front to make sure there wasn't too many gaps and we could actually link up, things that we had been missing. But ultimately, that's now the template that this team has to keep replicating as Philippe Clement and his coaching staff refine and iterate and get more of that. So 4-0, fantastic result, decent performance. Do it again Thursday. Do it again next weekend. Get yourself back into a title race. Win a trophy. That's where these players will start to rehabilitate themselves en masse with the support. And Philippe Clement doesn't strike me as the type who's going to keep people who can't do that around for very long.
Yeah, I'll come back to your point on tempo, Tommy, because it was something that Philippe Clement kind of focused on and he was happy with in bits, but also said it dropped off quite a few times from where he wanted it to be, which I thought was interesting. But I want to kind of discuss.
I'm not even in your room. I'm not even in your room, Craig. But I can still see what's on your agenda, and I'm still determined to cause as much hassle as I can. That's my thing every time I come on. Obviously,
still trying to set fire to it and successfully doing it as well. So.
There we go. I also need to maybe split you and Kyle up if Kyle's getting that excited when he's in the gantry with you. I maybe have to do different pairings in future, but we can take that offline.
I just want to touch on Joe 90's comment here. Iain, we pressed from the front, made forward passes, punished negative touches, most importantly, ran off the ball. The press wasn't mindless. We funneled to their fullbacks to create space for Sima. The press was one of the most noticeable early things in the game. As soon as the Hibs goalkeeper David Marshall had the ball for a goal kick, we were our front three were spread right across the 18-yard line, ready to have a run as soon as the short goal kick was taken. As soon as a fullback had it, there was 2 or 3 coordinated players going, and you could actually see throughout the game there were clear trigger points where the players knew as soon as a player entered a certain point of the pitch with the ball, they knew exactly who was going and they knew exactly when to go as well and for how long to go before they dropped back into their positions. I found that really impressive after such a short space of time, but I also found it interesting that we started to drop, whenever we were dropping into a defensive shape, it was a defensive 4-4-2, which is not something I've really seen us do beforehand, but it seems that press and then the shape when we drop off is going to be really important under Philippe Clement.
Massively. Yeah, I think my big thing for me for this game was how much higher we were just up the pitch in general, because we've been doing to kind of set off teams a little bit, and not in a sort of fully defensive way, but so often this season we saw Dessers maybe lead a press as a striker and just no one supporting him, so a team just pass it around Dessers, which is exhausting our striker, and we're not getting any benefit from it. So like you say, going into a sort of 4-4-2 shape, a little bit Brexit ball these days, but it's very effective in terms of having a couple of guys close to whoever's got the ball at all times. So you're constantly shutting down lanes, less avenues for the teams to get out. And don't get me wrong, I don't expect Hibs to pop the ball about and break through us in that kind of sense, but that could be a massive thing going forward, especially in Europe or dare we say Celtic games where they do like to pass it through teams quite a lot. So if we've got a tactic sitting there ready to just morph into, break that down, that's massive for us in regaining the ball. I think Raskin was massive in terms of Saturday and how he was sort of pressing, but effectively pressing, if that made sense. It's probably the best he's been alongside the Servette away game, where he just seemed to be everywhere at all times. It's always right spot just to nab the ball away, restart the attack, and then it goes back to where we started this conversation. It wasn't winning the ball back to then retain it. It was winning the ball back to go forward and try and make a chance. And I know Tommy touched on it was 23 shots or something there. That's not too surprising given how often we were just getting the ball and going, which is all we want to see. It's what any fan wants to watch their team doing. So yeah, big plaudits, especially like you say, 2 training sessions in with a squad that's far from your first choice 11. That's got to be promising.
Yeah, Tommy, just touching on the defensive shape, was it as obvious to you from where you were sitting that that's what we were doing? And were you impressed by the way we were pressing Hibs and the way we were forcing them into mistakes high up the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, yes, overarchingly, yeah, you're watching it and you're saying, right, I like the shape, I like what we're doing, but maybe like most people, I'm probably just happy that we are up the pitch, and I'm happy that we are, actually pressing. Sometimes I feel that whilst I do this, and obviously I do this because we do the fan media stuff and all that as well, I like to watch what the tactics are, etc. Sometimes I just revert to being a fan, just sitting watching the game and going, it's actually nice that we're up the pitch and we're dominating a game. Right? Maybe I'll put my notepad down for a wee while and just enjoy it. And back to Ian's point earlier, I mean, this doesn't answer your question actually, right? But back to Ian's point earlier, it's been such a poor run, and it's been turgid, and it's been hard to watch and all that, and it's not even been successful, right? It's actually just nice to see his front foot, to say, actually, welcome to Ibrox, you'll get a sniff of nothing. You'll get put in your box, your fans will leave early, they'll be quiet, right? And the best that they'll have is some scummy, grotty little comments and graffiti about a tragedy, right? That's them showing themselves up. On the pitch, their team also gets shown up. And it's just nice to sit back with the glow of a new manager and a new management team and a chance to reset and say, I really enjoyed that. Now, because I like to be thorough, I will say, yes, I also enjoyed watching us press really high, and I liked the shape and the rigidity to it, and the fact that we were all pressing as a team as well, and people were filling the spaces, and more importantly, dropping into the spaces left by the players pressing. But the first part of that answer is probably more important to me, particularly the graffiti part, and those people should be absolutely ashamed of such an abhorrent act.
Absolutely, they should be. Looking at it from a fan's perspective, Tommy, like you said, it was refreshing to me that we only conceded one real chance at goal in the whole game. John Souttar, not for the first time, I guess, got caught under a long throw-in. It was a bit of a stramash, to use an Arthur Montford phrase in there, and the ball eventually landed to Jack Butland and he took it away. But that was the only real chance I think we gave up in the game to Hibs. That was a real positive for me. There's questions over whether the Hibs turned up in their best form. I think they played better in previous games, going by how their manager's reaction was, but I don't think we let them play either. But the lack of conceding chances, I think, which we've seen all too often in recent games, was a positive for me as well from a fan perspective.
Listen, undoubtedly, you also need a wee bit of, maybe listeners and yourselves give me a bit of rope here, but you also need a wee bit of luck with that. They get a chance, they don't finish it. It gets snuffed out, that type of stuff. Sometimes you just need that wee bit extra luck to get you on your way. As time's gone by, I'm not a massive believer in luck, I suppose, to some extent, but you can probably bet your bottom dollar that Michael Beale's still on the touchline. The chance gets finished. Ibrox becomes slightly more hostile, and that's where you are. But listen, that's exactly it. Gave up one chance, didn't concede, went up the other side of the pitch, got 4 goals, really good performances by some individuals, really confidence-building moments for some others, and you get to see a little bit of what Philippe Clement is trying to do. I think, just to go back to your previous question as well, because I don't think I gave you a full enough answer, which is, maybe the important thing for Philippe Clement is, just by getting in the players' faces and making it very clear and very simple, he was able to change something really quickly. Now, if that doesn't give us all a positive lift, then nothing will. And if the players can also see, because players love excuses and love to hide behind them, if the players can say, actually, we did these simple things and we turned over Hibs, we weren't at their best, I get that, right, I grant you, but we turned them over. Okay, maybe we do keep going with this guy, and we need the players to keep going with Philippe Clement at least until the transfer window, where he can take some of the players that he doesn't like and he can shift them directly out of the club, because beyond illusions, there's still players in there that shouldn't be in a jersey and who have hidden under successive managers. So yeah, that's maybe some of the answer that I'd left out previously.
Always appreciate a further clarification, Tommy.
Well, I'm always happy to do it. I'm going to hold up a wee card next time so everybody can go and get a cup of tea and then come back when I'm finished.
Iain, one of the players that's coming up quite a bit in the comments actually is John Lundstram. A lot of people surprised by his performance. I think a lot of people were keen to see John Lundstram out the door in the summer, even more so after some of his performances early on in the season. What did you make of John Lundstram on Saturday? He seemed more comfortable in that position, in that role, than he has done for a while, and he seemed to have taken on some of those simple instructions from Clement really, really well. He he had his usual aggressive style, but when he won the ball, he was moving it quickly. He was getting the ball out wide quickly. He wasn't dilly-dallying on it, and I actually thought he had one of his better games so far this season.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think a big problem this season is, like I said before, it's the centre backs to Lundstram to the centre backs thing that just keeps kind of retaining possession. Maybe a little bit scared of getting the Ibrox groan that we're all talking about, but clearly, like you say, he's took on that instruction that if you get the ball, go forward. Doesn't matter if it's you going forward or the ball going forward, but someone is going forward. And then from a defensive point of view, I think he done pretty well at Sheffield United in the Premier League because their game was sort of press and a sort of, we're all going here, so let's press. So Lundstram's kind of built for that kind of role, which is why he does so well in Europe. Like, we're not going to have a lot of the ball in Europe, so he's the guy that charges him down, wins the ball back, and then moves it on to a creative player. And that's pretty much what his job was at the weekend. And the more simple Lundstram keeps it without going too simple, I think it's ideal for him, because no one's expecting Lundstram to run the pitch. He's not going to dribble past players. He's not going to make 10, 15 assists per season. That's not his job. But I think that's what gets people so frustrated, because he does have so much of the ball, yet you know he's not going to be that guy that's making like the 40-yard diagonal. He's not going to make defence splitting pass. But if he's the one that's always got the ball, us as a crowd are just simply waiting for someone to do that. So it's very easy just to say, like, you're the problem, Lundstram, out you get. But if we're playing a high press, he's probably the fittest guy in our team. He's the guy that's always available. He won the bleep test at the start of the season. You know, he's got a great engine on him. We need to make use of that. He's built for that kind of high press, high intensity side of it. So that's perfect. And then, as we're saying, as long as he can progressively play, then I don't see a problem with him being that sort of starting six, I guess he would be in this sort of 2023 world that we call positions numbers. I think he's the six that we want if he plays that way. And I'd be fine with him being there long term.
I just want to pick up on Joe 90's comment here, because it was something that I noticed as well, where it was a clear theme from the manager in the players' press conferences. He says, thought the comments from the manager and players about fitness were interesting. I think it was Sima trying to be diplomatic, saying a different kind of fitness, but it's a theme. Cyriel Dessers also referred to it, Iain, as a different kind of fitness than what they had before. Philippe Clement highlighted the fact that obviously the Borna Barisic injury was a negative, but also the fact that many players were struggling to complete the 90 minutes from a fitness perspective. What do you think's gone on there? Where has this gone wrong from a fitness side of things? When I know we spent a lot of time equating what Michael Beale does to what Steven Gerrard did, and assuming they're one of the same, which I think we've probably all learned that that's not the case. But under Steven Gerrard, we were a very fit football team. Under Michael Beale, it seemed like we were almost anything but. That seems to be hammered home, I guess, by the comments from both Clement and some of the players at the weekend. What do you make of that, and what do you think's gone on?
It's a strange one, because it's not as if you could say Beale's philosophy was all about like possession and style, because we didn't see that either. But there was a very interesting moment in the press conference on Friday, that would have been, where he, without saying it, was almost throwing shade at Beale for how unfit the squad was. I've always thought it's a kind of pace issue, because even if you look at that 11, there's Wright and there's Sima who have that bit of pace. Beyond that, there's not a lot. And beyond our squad, maybe Matondo or Danilo excluded, we don't have a lot of players with pace. And if suddenly you're looking at 11 guys running about without pace, they're just going to naturally look unfit. So I always thought it was kind of that, but he seems to be very focused on working close with physios, close with the medical team. And I think I said at the start, he's picked the fittest players for his position rather than maybe the best players in times, but he seems very big on fitness, which I'm all for. I'd love that. It's just going to be a problem for a lot of our squad. Obviously, we know it goes without saying there's at least 4 or 5 guys in there who you know can't play 4 or 5 games on the trot. Just your Roofe, Lawrence, Matondo, Suter, Barisic. It's pretty harsh to throw Barisic in that sort of same train, but he's in his 30s now. He's going to start breaking down. It is quite an old core of a squad as well, so I wouldn't be too surprised if once we get a fuller, fitter squad, we see a lot more younger players playing in order to match this high-intensity manager, and that can only be a good thing, style of play-wise, I think.
Tommy, just on the fitness thing, was it a comment that A, surprised you, and B, were you I get use the word surprised again, were you surprised at the fact that Philippe Clement was so forthright in the way he came out and spoke about that and called it out?
No, I mean, I think he strikes most people, certainly strikes me as a pretty straight speaker. If he doesn't like something, he'll say that. I mean, any manager has their own style of training and the levels of expected fitness. So, for example, to take Iain's point, we need to be careful as well in that it's relatively easy to also say the players haven't been fit enough, but I can come in and change that. Right. I'm not saying Philippe Clement is doing that, but it's a bit of an easy win. I remember us all having positive conversations about Michael Beale calling out Giovanni Van Bronckhorst on the fact that the squad weren't fit enough. So, take your pick, and let's be fairly clear-eyed about how we all react to these particular stories. He might also be talking about certain specific players who haven't maybe come out of pre-season and been done. But, you can't say, oh, you've got players doing bleep tests and passing them and being able to compete or whatever, but actually the whole squad is under fitness. I don't think that's what anybody in this podcast, or indeed Philippe Clement, went. It may be just I expect the fitness levels to change in a certain way because the style of play is going to be much more tempo-led, much more forward-facing, much more invasive to the other team, as opposed to, okay, let's take the ball or soak up pressure, let's hit them on the break, which is slightly different kind of parameters of what you're trying to do. So it may be some of both of those things in that, right, I want a different style of play and I want my players to go right to the end. No, either way, it's no bad thing, but I don't immediately jump on a bandwagon of, right, new manager said old manager hasn't got the exact level of fitness and style of play that I wanted. And again, I come back to it's relatively simple for players who've been underperforming to then jump on that bandwagon as well. It wasn't me who couldn't hit a barn door. It wasn't me who was scared to pass forward. Turns out I wasn't fit enough to actually have that in my mind. Right, park yourself up and learn how to do better, because that's just an excuse. Right, fitness doesn't really stop you playing a ball forward or being able to hit a target. So yeah, I kind of walk a fine line on that one. But I come back to, I'm pretty sure what Philippe Clement wants his players to be fitness-wise, they are going to be fitness-wise. I don't think there'll be a lot messing about behind the scenes.
Yeah, speaking of players who couldn't hit a barn door, Cyriel Dessers got
I did that heavy lifting for you there. I did that heavy lifting for you, Craig. I thought I'd do the knitting together there.
I've been extremely harsh there. I've sat in a press conference with him a couple of times now, and he's the nicest guy you could ever want to meet. And he is he's the kind of guy you really want to do well.
Yeah, I mean, if he threw a punch at you, he'd go right past you, so you don't need to worry about that.
He is genuinely one of the nicest guys that I've met and through the press conferences, and he's the kind of guy that you do genuinely want to do well, but he has had his struggles so far. There seemed to be a bit of a divide in terms of how people viewed his performance on Saturday, and I felt a lot of people, particularly those watching from home, weren't that impressed by him and his contributions. The commentary on our Twitter feed as we were commenting on the game was that he's doing nothing. He's not putting any effort. He's as useless as ever. Whereas at the game, actually, I felt that people were really positive about Cyriel Dessers' performance, and that he was obviously playing his part in the press. He was linking up better between midfield and the front three, and he obviously had a couple of chances where he partially kind of snatched at them a little bit, but got his goal in the end and kept finding those positions. What did you make of Cyriel Dessers' performance and the fan reaction that he got? Because obviously when he came off as a sub, it was just after his goal, but he got a standing ovation from the crowd at Ibrox, which isn't something you see all too often if a player is out of favour.
No, it's an interesting one, like you say. I mean, I think if that was his debut game and he had that exact performance, we'd all be quite happy. There wouldn't be any negatives about it. It'd just be a guy finding his feet, done pretty well, got his goal, ticked every box. I think it goes back to this sort of scarring that we've got from what we've seen already this season. So just as an example, when he gets played through off Lammers and he's 2-1-on-1, I didn't think he would score. he doesn't score. Seema gets the goal in the end, but not in a sort of evil way. But I'd kind of thought, well, Nuno wasn't scoring, so there we go. I think you're just going to it negative, which is wrong. That's not the right way I should be looking at a Rangers striker, but it's just what's ingrained to me so far this season, and I've not seen enough from him to this point to make me think he will turn it around, and he's a wee flash there, a moment there. But in saying that, he did sort of try his heart out. You know, he was running, pressing. He has a hand in the first Seema goal for the fact that he's sort of battling for the ball and it ricochets onto Seema, who then goes and scores. So he's involved there. He also gets his own goal, and then he's a big part of Seema's other goal, sort of making that run, taking it under goalie, leads to the goal. If not, it's going to be a penalty. So he's done his job there. I mean, I didn't see enough that makes me think, right, this is our guy, starting every game, here we go. But for once, I'm coming away going, there's something there. There's a bit of ability there. There's the hard work there. Like you say, he's had a tough spell to this point, to put it mildly, kindly. But you saw in the press conference, and like you see, he's got a very infectious smile. He seems a lovely guy. My missus fancies him so highly that it's quite upsetting for me looking the exact opposite as him. But I want him to do well. I think Danilo coming back will take a little bit of a break off him. Maybe you'd see two up front a little bit more, which could help him. And I thoroughly hope he does now kick on. Gets a goal Thursday night.
You're about to get absolutely abused by Tommy here.
Your missus obviously doesn't have a type. I mean, Cyriel Dessers and you, Iain, do not.
I'm trying not to ask myself that. I'm trying to gloss way over that. Just totally ignore that fact.
Do you know, of all the things I thought you were going to say about Cyriel Dessers, that was not the one that your missus fancies on. So get her on the podcast, right? You can go away. Let's get the missus on and talk about Cyriel Dessers, and well, he should be the one we put up for the calendar at the end of the season. Then there we go.
Him and Todd Cantwell, Jack Butland, quite a few to be fair. But Tommy, Cyriel Dessers, one of the things that I guess is not levelled at him, but it's always he puts in the effort. And
I'm sure he does put in the effort. Ask Ian's missus, but right, that's not that here nor there at this level thing. Don't take it personally, right? But
yeah, so one of the things is that he puts in the effort, but that should be the bare minimum for a Rangers player of any position, not just a forward. One of Cyriel Dessers made the point in his post-match press conference that if he keeps doing the hard work for the team, if he keeps getting in the positions for the team, then the goals will come. He scored goals all his life. It's always how it's worked. He just needs to keep doing the hard work for the team and getting in the right positions. And I guess you get that, but it's translating that into the eye test and what the fans are seeing on the pitch. And I don't think that that's quite married up yet.
No, listen, I think you're right, and Ian's right as well in terms of he's maybe got into that place as well that people just want him to do well. He's still a Rangers player, you know, still want him to hit the back of the net, and you go back to doing the basics, you know. And Philippe Clement referenced that as well. Just work hard for the team. You know, he's involved in bits. He's involved in Seema's second goal, and he gets his finish. His finish is actually quite a nice, kind of cool finish as well. Do I think he'll go on to be a stellar striker for Rangers? I don't, right? But will he score goals? I absolutely hope so. And if this is the first on a kind of a road for him to start scoring goals and do what his job is at the top end of the park, then, you know, all power to the guy's elbow, so to speak. If it's nice and simple and he can get back to playing his game, great. I hope we're going to see the other side of Cyriel Dessers now, which is, you know, as Ronald de Boer had referenced, when he's got confidence, he's pretty deadly. We've seen the out of confidence Cyriel Dessers. Maybe now we're getting that goal and getting an arm around his shoulder from the manager and fans giving him a bit of kind of good vibes from the stands. We actually do get to see the confident Dessers, and he goes on a run of scoring goals. I mean, that's not a bad thing. Nobody in a Rangers jersey or nobody supporting Rangers loses if he does go on a run and proves us all a wee bit wrong for the hassle he's taken. So yeah, I wish nothing but the best for the guy, in all honesty.
Yeah, Tommy, one of the most telling things I think that came from that press conference for me was the fact that he spoke about the negative noise that had been around him, obviously pre the last international break. He said he'd had, I think the phrase he used was he'd seen both sides of the fans in terms of being negative towards him and being positive towards him. He also spoke about he'd let some of the negative noise start to affect him, and he started to try too hard, and that was impacting his game. Were you surprised, firstly, that as a player, as a Rangers player, that he was willing to openly admit that? And secondly, I think it was obvious to us all after that Aberdeen game just how much he had been affected by the negative noise. I think you'd spoken in the podcast just after that game as well about it was time to take him out the limelight. It was clear it was affecting him, wasn't it?
Yeah, I remember referencing the fact he was the last player off the pitch as well after the walk-round, which I thought was a wee bit unfair for him too. But yeah, listen, people are only human in the background. If you are looking in on social media or you're listening to the stands, then you knew he was getting absolutely pilloried. He's a big summer signing. His manager had put a lot of hope in him. That manager is now gone. It'd be surprising if it wasn't getting under the skin a wee bit. That's why these players are supposed to be at the elite level as well, that they have a mentality, not to accept abuse, but a mentality to say, I can come back from the low moments. If that's what he's turned that into now, to say, listen, I can be open, I do want to be a success at this club. That's what I took from it. I really want to get you fans on side here and score goals for you. And then he starts putting in, workhorse performances, first of all, and then that translates into goals. Well, you can see the guys, working the jersey and trying to do the job. Again, these are all fairly laudable things. And then you get to a point of, right, has he done enough to stay, or has he done enough to make himself attractive to being sold or whatever? And that's just, the cycle of football. But I quite like the fact that the guy was open and honest about he wants to be a success. He's not become petulant into himself. He's tried to do enough. A new manager's come in, put the arm around him, and he's rewarded him with whether you say the performance was amazing or not, or it was okay, it was so-so. He's done enough to get a goal, and he's been involved in another setup. Again, that's an absolute positive movement for Cyriel Dessers. Best of luck to the guy.
Iain, what did you make of those comments from Cyriel Dessers around the pressure potentially getting to him a little bit before the last international break?
Like Tommy says, it can't be a surprise. I mean, I've never in all my years going to Ibrox seen a player get booed off the park the way Dessers got booed off the park. Now, I understand at the time I was in the stadium, I felt the frustration, but it was, if we take a step back, that's horrible to watch, let alone to be the person who's been booed. I mean, that's a lot of players wouldn't recover from that, and a lot of players, as Tommy said, would shirk away, hide away, not come out for press conferences, not discuss it. So I think it was nice. It was very real of him. But just touch on the fact he seems a lovely guy. Like, he seems very honest, very upfront. And there was a few times he's been kind of last off the park. And there's just wee things like that you kind of think, right, I don't know how to say it, but just get your head down, keep going. As a Rangers striker, you will always get chances. Like, guys behind you, guys like Cantwell feeding balls on like that, you're always going to get a couple of chances. And I think as well, it was quite important that he did miss a few. There's a couple of little ones that could have gone his way, could have gone better, but he was still prepared to sort of take his time when he got his moment, because he could have just flapped at that. I mean, we saw at the Aberdeen game right at the start where he has the chance from Tav and he just balloons it over the bar. He could have easily got the ball from Cantwell and just, oh, shoot. But he took a second, saw where the players were, let the Hibs guys sort of collide, and then just, there you go. It was like I said before, it's nice just to see he has got something. He's got a bit of finishing to him. And if this is now the start of a little run, a bit of composure, a bit of confidence in him, it's win-win-win for all of us. So let's hope that's the way forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Tommy, Philippe Clement also spoke about how pleased he was with the synergy between the fans and the players. The fact that it was there from effectively minute one on Saturday, I was going to say Sunday. In fact, it was there from minute one on Saturday, and his quote said, "It's one of the biggest strengths of this club. One we need to win trophies." How important is it that the fans are on side and backing the team? And were you surprised that happened so quickly, or is that just something that naturally happens when a new manager comes in?
It's the new manager bounce. Even fans get it. It's not just the dressing room. So unsurprised to hear people going with it. Would have been interesting if Hibs' early chance goes in the back of the net. Right, but it's not focused in on Philippe Clement, it's focused in on these players. The squad has been the problem, not wholly the manager that's been in the chair. So yeah, I'm unsurprised to see that everybody got behind them. I think we've already all bought into a large extent to Philippe Clement and his kind of he's speaking, his look, all that type of good stuff. So yeah, I think that's fine. Again, maybe the same as the players' consistency, because we all know that if things aren't going particularly well, Ibrox can be a bit of a tough place to play in a blue jersey, and players naturally go hiding. So yeah, we need to be aware of that too. But again, sometimes you're looking for the players to bring the fans. The conversation seems to be one way a lot of the time, which is all these fans that you roll the players on. Sometimes we actually need something to hang our hat on and a wee bit of belief. I think Philippe Clement is filling that role for us right now. What we need is the players to consistently do it as well.
Yeah, it was actually one of the things I wondered if, because fans have, I don't want to say blindly backed, but they've got right behind Giovanni van Bronckhorst when he came in. They got right behind Michael Beale when he came in, and both times have been let down quite significantly. I wondered if there would be more fans sitting back in expectation, or sitting back and saying, right, it's up to you guys to bring me along, it's up to you guys to show me. But it didn't feel that way, Iain, on Saturday. Is you getting the impression that fans are quickly getting behind Philippe Clement and the players again?
Yeah, I mean, Bale talked a good game and then didn't back it up. Clement has so far talked a very good game. Every press conference, every little media snippet, every interview so far, I've came away going, I like this guy. I like this guy. Like it's building and building and building, and I think that's the key. It's more, we're a very easy fan base to get suckered in and think, oh, he's the one. Here we go, brilliant, perfect. So winning 4-0 will help that, but it's consistency. I've seen in the comments a lot between players, management. It's consistency. Win again on Thursday night. Win at the weekend. Keep this going. Keep the momentum going. Keep the confidence going. Get more players back, and suddenly this is on. So, there's a lot to play for this season. I know 7 points is a lot. We obviously saw they got a win yesterday again, but it's not over. And I think the more confidence we get in the players in particular, I know we're talking about the manager right now, but if the manager can keep the confidence coming for the players, this squad can get so much better. It has to. So let's hope that keeps going.
Just add one thing to Ian's very well made point there, which is there's also a legitimacy to Philippe Clement, with the best will in the world, to Michael Beale. When he was talking stuff and it maybe wasn't going right or whatever, you go, what? Coach, QPR, not exactly stellar. Clement turns around and goes, right, well, I was big enough to get the Monaco job as well, but I've also got 3, in a row titles from the Belgian league, which is not a bad league, with 2 different clubs. So there's a serious legitimacy when somebody says, right, and this is how I do it. All right, I wonder if that'll work. Well, it's one stuff. So you get a wee bit extra there, as opposed to somebody who says, right, well, I've modelled this and I think this is the right way to go about it. Right, but have you actually won anything? No, not yet, but I won it as an assistant. Different when you're wearing, I think as Michael Beale found out as well, it's different when you're wearing the suit jacket and you're the one that's out front and centre and you're the one that has to weather the storm.
Yeah, Tommy, that kind of that it's almost like you've seen my agenda, like you said, but kind of touches on the touches on the next point I was looking to ask you both, and I'll start with yourself, Tommy, on it, just around Clement as a person, Clement as a character, what you've seen of him so far in press conferences at the side of the park. Has he impressed you so far? Do you like what you're seeing from him? Do you like what you're hearing from him?
Yeah, I'll give you a shorter answer then, since I've done that. Yes, like what I'm seeing, like what I'm hearing. He's got a good history. He's won his first game. Go and win your second game. Go and win your third game. Go and win trophies. I like you even more. That's it.
Iain, same question to you.
Yeah, pretty much the same. No, it's like I said before, he's ticked every box I'd want him to so far. He's got this kind of aura about him, which I don't think we've had since Gerrard. And as a fan, I don't think that's too important. But as a player, I think you take on what he says. You know, he's a big guy. He's got, as Tommy touched on, he's got medals in his pocket, which I know Gio won a league. I think he won a league and a cup. He obviously had a great playing career, which is great. It's a nice bonus. But particularly in comparison to Bale, who hadn't on his own merit won anything, which I mean, I'm not like trying to slight the guy and kick him when he's down sort of thing, because I was a big fan of him coming in. I thought this would make sense. He always had a great start. But just if I'm looking at it from what a footballer wants from a manager, as Tommy says, you want a guy who's won trophies, who's got this aura about him, who's got the sort of the ability to say, do this because look, simple as that. I know a way that wins. Let's go on and do that. And the more 4-0 wins we get, the more it's just going to keep building and building.
Yeah, we've spoken a lot about the positivity, I guess, that's come from Saturday. I think.
Hold on. What do you think?
What do I think about Philippe Clement? I think he is a very intimidating individual, having stood 5 feet from him, and I will absolutely not be getting on the wrong side of Philippe Clement at any point in any press conference. But yeah, it completely backs up what you guys say. He has that presence about him that I think was lacking from both Gio and from Michael Beale. I think he has that. As soon as he walks in the room, everyone takes notice, whether that's just his size or whether that's actually just his presence as a person and a personality. I'm not quite sure yet, but when he was answering questions in the press conference, he was very assured in what he said. He wasn't giving anything. He wasn't giving too much away. He wasn't leaking anything that shouldn't be said, or he was very assured and very well media trained from that perspective. And he's one of these guys that just doesn't say anything without thinking about it first. And you can imagine that's exactly how he is with the players as well. And you can see how his instructions will be very clear and very, very concise. The Trying Scotsman come up says gravitas. He has gravitas, and that's exactly what it is, and it's exactly what you expect from a Rangers manager as well.
I'm also very glad that you highlighted that second comment from the Trying Scotsman and not the one that he put up just before.
I was very careful to highlight the second one as well. So yeah, absolutely. But gravitas is a really good word for it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that now plays out. I don't think he'll take any nonsense. I think if any players don't meet the standards he wants or don't meet up to his expectations, they will be out the door quickly, and that's exactly what we want as Rangers fans. We know that the core of this team has been around for too long, and it's needed someone strong to almost come in and get rid of it all. We thought Michael Beale was going to do it in the summer. He didn't. A lot of them are still around. I have no doubt that Philippe Clement, if they are not offering what he wants them to offer and what he needs them to offer, they will be out the door quicker than they can, quicker in a flash. So yeah, I think Philippe Clement is a really positive addition to our management team. I think it'll be really interesting watching him go forward, but he will take no nonsense. I don't think that's up for debate at all. Just to round us off, I guess, we are fast approaching the hour mark. One of the key things that Philippe Clement has continued to speak about and continued to discuss is his philosophy or ideology: dominant attacking football with a good pressing game. That sounds like what we all want and what we all try and create in Football Manager, or what we all try and create in FIFA or whatever. Is it as easy as saying that's the recipe for success, Tommy, and if we achieve that, then there's no doubt and we'll be lifting trophies?
I don't think any manager turns up and goes, "Oh, my football's shocking. Right, I'm going to park my bus here and we'll see what happens." Right, thank God.
It's kind of a Steve Clark mentality, that one, is it not? Is it kind of a
thank whatever gods you've got for my 3-year contract and my compensation package. I'm here for the short term. I don't think any manager ever says that. They all say roughly the same thing. I want to dominate. I want to win trophies. I want to take care of the football. I want to do X, Y, and Z. Again, we go back to some of the stuff we've just said. Well, Philippe Clement has got that philosophy, if you like, philosophy being different from rigid ideology and saying I can only play one style of football, because he obviously doesn't. But he's got that philosophy and it's shown that it works. Right? He's won stuff. So, yeah, I mean, everybody wants to see really dominant football where you put your foot on the neck of the opponent and you don't let go or step off until the final whistle goes and the points are in the bag and you've scored goals and you're at the top end of the table come the end of the season and you've got trophies in the cabinet. Everybody wants that. You're not going to get that every single game. That's fine. So if we can also do the less glamorous bits where it's pretty turgid, but you come away with the 3 points, that's a good recipe here. He strikes me as being, whilst he really wants that, he's also a pragmatist. I will take the points when I need to because what I just want to do is win. And that's the thing that's came across from me. He just keeps constantly banging on about winning. I just want to win. Just want to win. Right? Fine, you can iterate all the style of play. Just keep winning. Just keep winning. That's a good thing for me.
Yeah. Iain, final word on this to you. Marco Negri's eyes comments, just it says, modern verse phrase, I want 5 across the back and waist high tackles. And I'm only half joking. You were a big proponent of 5 across the back under Michael Beale. How are you feeling? Are you excited by the approach that Philippe Clement is putting forward in terms of on the park?
Yeah, very much so. I think a big thing that was posed to him in that first sort of interview he done was about like your philosophy and how you play. And I'm quite a big fan of the fact that he doesn't have one. Just depends sort of the opposition, the way he's going to try and play. As you say, I am Mr. 5 at the back because of my like thinking is always going to be get your 11 best players, play them. And when I think of who our best players are, top 11 wise, Goldson, Suter, Davies, I think just about make that in terms of who's like normally fit and stuff like that. So that's why I'm that guy. And I think Clement would have the sort of tactical awareness or the nous to sometimes deploy that tactic, sometimes make use of that. I mean, I think we've seen all too often our fullbacks get done with players running at them, more so in Europe or certain games. But I think Clement is wise that he does his scouting, he does his awareness. I think he got asked in the press conference there about Thursday night, and he was straight away going, they play like this, they do that. So he's obviously got that kind of forward planning, what you would expect in any manager these days. I mean, we've got a massive scouting department. I'm not saying it's him sitting watching DVDs every night about this kind of stuff, but
I think he is watching DVDs every night, to be honest. I think he comes across that kind of guy.
It does. But I think that's a good thing for me. It's flexibility. We spoke earlier about how the shape at the start of the game was like 4-2-3-1, then suddenly it was 4-4-2. And again, this is a couple of training sessions in. You're getting that flexibility, that fluidity. The front three, sort of a lot of the game were moving about. You saw Lammers be the sort of head striker, then he was in the wing. Dessers would cover. Seema played from the left, but got his goal from the right, stuff like that. I mean, I don't think that's just players randomly moving about. That looked structured for a change. It looked like it made sense. And I think that comes down to Clement and his desire, his awareness of teams. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see back 5s here, back 3s there, back 4s there. And that's just going to keep other teams guessing. So all for it.
Absolutely. Okay, I think we'll round off the podcast there. Thank you very much to Iain and Tommy for their contributions. Iain's away to try and hide his Mrs. Cyriel Dessers posters before he goes to bed.
He's absolutely regretting mentioning anything about that. You have my sympathies, Iain. You have my sympathies. Yeah. Right.
Look forward to it.
Can I just say, well,
you can definitely see the regret in his face.
Just another thing as well, it kind of went under the radar because we don't really focus on this type of thing as well. It's only recently that we've come to YouTube and stuff like that. Just the other day, This Is Ibrox channel passed 1 million views. And I just wanted to thank the people who are watching here, the people who watch it on YouTube later on, etc. That's incredible. And so thank you so much for being with This Is Ibrox. We've got a lot more coming down the track.
Absolutely. And if you're brand new to us, welcome along. Please do like the video if you've enjoyed the content. Please do subscribe to the TII YouTube channel so you get a notification every single time we go live, or we'll pop up in your subscription feed so you can watch all the videos that come up. In terms of what we've got coming up the rest of this week, Kyle and the team will be back on Wednesday night, looking ahead to the big game in Prague on Thursday as Rangers get set to take on Sparta Prague. And then we'll be back at the weekend as well, Rangers versus Hearts on Sunday, and we'll be live from the gantry at Ibrox for that one as well. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and until next time, goodbye.